Good morning, students. As we are continuing with our study on the human circulatory system, today we are going to deal with the second component, the human heart. Okay, for the topics for today that we have taken are that is location of the heart, function of the heart, protective structures of the heart, and the structures of the heart, that is external and internal structures, right? So let us continue with the location of the heart. And as you can see here, the location of the heart is located in the chest cavity within the rib cage, right? And the sternum, ribs and the sternum protecting it. And then it is right in the center in between the two lungs and above the diaphragm. This is the diaphragm and these are the two lungs, right lung and the left lung. Right? The left and the right are your lateral image. So that is the lateral image, the figure. Your left is the right of your body. And as the heart here is located, you can see the shape of the heart is triangular and its pointed tip of the heart is more towards the left side, which is the powerful end of the heart. Now we will come to the function of the heart. The function of the heart, see, this is your heart, which is a highly muscular hollow organ, and you can see its walls are made up of cardiac muscles, and internally the heart is divided into four chambers. These are the two auricles and these are the two ventricles, the lower ventricles. Separated auricles and ventricles are separated by the septum, which prevents intermixing of blood. That I'll be explaining later. And these are the blood vessels. You can see the blood vessels that bring blood to the heart and the blood vessels that are taking blood away from the heart. Now let us see the function of the blood. You can see here it pumps blood to the different parts of the body through the blood vessels. Now we come to the protective structures of the heart. As I showed you in the first frame, that is the ribs protecting the heart, the bony structure, and next the pericardium. Pericardium is a membranous covering that protects the heart, and as you can see it has two layers, outer parietal pericardium and inner visceral pericardium, enclosing a cavity in between, that is the pericardial cavity, which is filled with pericardial fluid. This fluid also provides protection by preventing friction. The membrane protects from mechanical injury, and thus also pericardial fluid also it prevents friction. Now we'll come to the external features of the heart. See the external features. You can see from the shape of the heart, it is roughly triangular and the pointed tip is towards the lower part, towards the left side that I showed you. There are two arteries or auricles here on top, which are the receiving chambers, and the two lower ventricles. Right? It also is associated with blood vessels. Taking blood away from the heart is the major blood vessel, that is, or the major artery, that is aorta, and the major blood vessel that brings blood to the heart, which is a vein, and the largest vein is the vena cava, like the largest artery we call it as aorta. And the entire, we saw in the other module, that's wall of the heart, which is a hollow cavity, is made up of muscular tissue, that is cardiac muscles. And as these cardiac muscles also require supply of oxygen, it is supplied through the coronary arteries. These coronary arteries supply oxygenated blood to the walls of the heart, and the deoxygenated blood is carried by the coronary veins and coronary sinuses. And if there is blockage, that means with a cholesterol deposition, the coronary arteries if it is get blocked. So if this at this point it is the artery is blocked, then the entire area to which it supplies blood, this portion gets devoid of oxygen. So that leads to deadening of the muscle tissue. So that is, this deadening of the muscle tissue will lead to myocardial infarction or your heart attack. That if it is a major heart attack, then this major coronary artery, if it is blocked, then it leads to a major heart attack, that is myocardial infarction. Now we will come to the internal structures of the heart. In the internal structure, we'll see the chambers of the heart, the blood vessels associated with it, and the valves that control the flow of blood in the heart or regulate it to flow in a single direction. Because you have already learned that there is within our human body, the unidirectional flow of blood occurs. The blood never backflows. Okay. So first, the four chambers. There are two auricles or atriums, right and left atrium. This is right, which is your left side of your body because it is the mirror image, and this is the left atrium. Both these atriums receive blood. They are the receiving chambers. So right atrium receives deoxygenated blood from all over the body, and left atrium receives deoxygenated blood that is supplied from the lungs after oxygenation. And the lower two chambers are the ventricles, that is right and left according to its position here. And the right ventricle receives blood from the, of course, deoxygenated blood from the right atrium, and the left ventricle receives oxygenated blood from the left atrium. But both these ventricles are distributing chambers. They distribute blood through the concerned blood vessels, through these blood vessels that arise from these ventricles to the different parts of the body. Now you can see the difference in the walls of the atrium and the ventricle. Atrial wall is thin, whereas the ventricular walls are thicker. It's because they distribute blood to the longer distance. And this right ventricle, after it takes the deoxygenated blood, pumps it to the lungs through this pulmonary artery. So a lung is located at the same level in the thoracic cavity. So the walls of the ventricles, as you can see, are thinner than the walls of the left ventricle. Now, left ventricular walls are thicker than the right ventricle. The reason is that from the left ventricle, the oxygenated blood is supplied to the entire body. That is, right to the against gravity to the upper part of the body, that is brain or head and the arms, and to the lower part of the body, that is even up to the tip of your toe, the farthest distance. That is why the walls of the ventricles are thicker. And the ventricles, right and left side, and the atriums, the left and right side, are separated by this septum, which is called as interauricular ventricular septum. Now, this septum or a muscular tissue, of course, it prevents intermixing of blood, that is deoxygenated blood and the oxygenated blood do not get mixed. Of course, at the time of birth, there is a small opening here which helped in transporting of the blood to the left auricle in the embryonic stage in the womb of the mother, through which the blood from the right atrium passes to the left atrium because the lung is not functional in the womb. Now we come to the, after these are about the four chambers, now we come to the blood vessels. The blood vessels that bring blood to the heart, that is the vena cavas, the veins, right? So one is your superior vena cava and inferior vena cava. Superior vena cava, bringing deoxygenated blood from the upper part of the body, opens into the right atrium, and the inferior vena cava that brings deoxygenated blood from the lower part of the body opens into the right atrium. So these are the two openings through which the deoxygenated blood enters the heart. And the other blood vessel is the pulmonary vein, that brings blood from the lungs. There is a pair of pulmonary veins arising from each lung. So there are 4 openings from left and right lung. These veins open into the left atrium. So it has 4 openings. Now they bring oxygenated blood after the deoxygenated blood is purified in the lungs, or you can say it is oxygenated. Yes. So the oxygenated blood comes to the left atrium. Now we come to the blood vessels that take blood away from the heart. The blood vessels that take blood away from the heart, one is pulmonary artery and the other is aorta. So pulmonary artery arises from the right ventricle taking deoxygenated blood to the lungs, right? So this pulmonary artery divides, this is the trunk that divides into 2 arteries entering into the respective lungs. After oxygenation, the blood will be coming to the pulmonary vein through it into the left atrium. Now we come to the blood vessel that arises from the left ventricle, and that is aorta, the largest artery, taking blood from the left ventricle, that is oxygenated blood, supplying to the different parts of the body. The aorta that arises or leaves the ventricle forms an aortic arch. You can see this aortic arch. From the arch, the 3 vessels origin are given out, which supply blood to the head and brain and the arms. Okay, the detail of these blood vessels is not required. And of course, another from the base of the aorta, here as it leaves the ventricle, the coronary arteries arise. This is the point of the origin of coronary arteries that supply blood to the walls of the heart. Right? Then after it forms the arch, the aorta goes behind the heart and comes down as the dorsal aorta. This is the dorsal aorta. The dorsal aorta supplies blood to the lower part of the body. So this is about the blood vessels entering and leaving the heart. And then we'll come to the valves that regulate the flow of blood in the heart in a single direction. Now these arrow marks shows the flow of blood. So these flow of blood are regulated by these valves. There are 2 sets of valves. This is arterioventricular valve. So arterioventricular valve is located between the atrium and the ventricles. Of course, there are 2 sets. On the right hand side, it is right arterioventricular valve, which is also known as tricuspid valve. And it is called as cuspid valve because it has cusps, and that is like a parachute. So this cusp at its anterior end remains attached to the apex or apices of these valves like this, and on the other end, it arises from the papillary extensions of the ventricular wall. These are papillary muscles. So from these papillary muscles, these tendon-like structures arise. These fibers that hold the valves in position. And these fibers are called as chorda tendineae. They regulate the flow of blood. When these chorda tendineae, they contract, so they bring down these flaps together and the passage closes. But when they relax, they allow the blood to flow because it doesn't pull the flaps together. So as a result of which the blood from the atrium flows into the ventricle. The same principle is also followed on the left side between the left atrium and the left ventricle. And because it has this cusps number, depending on the number of cusps, on the right hand side, the valve is called as tricuspid valve, and on the left hand side, between the left atrium and left ventricle, it is known as bicuspid valve or mitral valve. It is also called as mitral valve. So when the blood enters into the atrium through the respective veins, the blood enters into the atrium, and when the chorda tendineae relaxes, it allows the blood to enter into the ventricle. These chorda tendineae relaxes as the walls of the ventricles also relax. So it allows the blood to flow into the ventricles. Now when the walls of the ventricles now will contract, these chorda tendineae will be tightened, so it will push the blood to enter into the respective blood vessels. As the blood enters into the blood vessels that are leaving the heart, you can find there are valves at the origin of these blood vessels as they leave their respective ventricles, aorta and pulmonary artery. So they are called as semilunar valve because of the half moon shaped structure. As it is located at the base of pulmonary valve, it is a pulmonary artery. The name of the valve is pulmonary valve. Pulmonary semilunar valve to be precise. So this is pulmonary semilunar valve. When the blood enters through this, they press the flaps of the valves towards the wall so they get a free passage. Similarly, here at the origin of the aorta from the left ventricle arises the position of the aortic valve, that is aortic semilunar valve. Now the aortic semilunar valve again is pressed when the blood flows from the ventricles into the aorta due to the contraction of the ventricular walls. As the blood enters into this aorta or into the pulmonary artery, they will have a tendency to flow back due to gravity. But because as the blood flows down, it fills the gap between the flap of the semilunar valve and the wall of the vessel. These flaps come closer and shut the passage, right? So, as a result of which, when the ventricular walls relax due to low pressure, even the blood cannot go down or flow downwards or backwards. So, that is how these two valves regulate the flow of blood in the aorta and pulmonary artery in a single direction. So now we have learnt about the valves that regulate the flow of blood in the heart. That is your tricuspid and bicuspid valve and pulmonary semilunar valve and aortic semilunar valve. So this is all about the internal structure of the heart, and in the next class we will be learning about the rest of the musculature of the heart and the circulation of blood. Thank you. Have a good day.